We did not do this from the beginning, and I wish we would have. We needed clearly defined roles, and we needed to stay in our own lane. That was the biggest thing. It was very commingled. I would do something, my husband would do something, same with my daughter, and so I've done a better job with my daughter of you this is your responsibility. This is what I'm going to do. This is what you need to do. And my husband also.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Freedom Blueprint. I'm Adrienne Green, and today we have with me Amber Lehmann. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Adrienne. I appreciate that.
Amber is awesome because she is a business owner, entrepreneur, and a real estate investor together. So get ready, guys, because we're going to share a lot of awesome insights for how there can be a synergy and how you could work with commercial real estate investing. So I'm excited for all of this. And now, Amber, there's so much to share, but let's start with the beginning. How did you get started in real estate investing?
I got started in real estate investing accidentally. My husband is a chiropractor. We own a chiropractic and medical clinic. Well, when we were in our early 20s, we were very young, no experience with real estate. The building that our practice was housed in, the owner of it was the original builder of that building. And they built that back and started in 1968, 1970. And they really liked us. And they came to us and they were like, hey, we're ready to sell this building. It had 5 suites in it. And we had one of them. And we want to sell the building and we want to give you guys first option. And we were like, well, we don't know anything about commercial real estate or how to do it. We don't know anything. And so we ended up bringing in some of our chiropractic friends as partners. And so we all came together and we bought the building. It was a great experience. I'm glad we did. We got a great deal. They did an owner finance possible thing that could happen. But because we were too afraid and we were scared to figure out how to manage this building, we went in with these partners and it was a great experience. However, we had too many hands in the pot. We didn't do anything. I mean, it paid for itself, which was a great thing. So we continued building our business and the building just kept going. We had tenants in there. And then finally we said, you know what, we just need to buy everybody out because nothing's getting done. We had too many people. We needed a new roof and there was repairs that needed to be done. So we ended up buying them out. So I always say we bought the building twice. So we're on our second round of the building. We really put in a lot of money to be able to get better tenants. We invested a lot into the building. And then we ended up moving our business over a couple of suites because it was a bigger suite. And so we remodeled and we took over several of the suites for our own business. And so that's how it got started. So we ended up learning a lot along the way on how to manage a commercial real estate. And so future-wise, we definitely want to continue in that trend. Our first challenge was everybody was young. We were all in our 20s. And so we were just pooling, together like, okay, we need $20,000, for the down payment. And then we have to have somebody manage it. And we never had any business structure. That was what I learned. There was no business structure ever. We managed it because we were the ones there. And so we were the ones that collected rent, and then because we needed more hands in the pot, because we needed the funds to be able to make it happen, because all of us were just so young that we ended up having I think there were 10 partners in there. And some people never even saw the building. They never even saw it. It was like, hey, if you do this, we'll give you 5%. It was that kind of situation. I wouldn't do that again. I loved that we were able to do it and everything worked out. In the end, everything worked out very well. Everybody was pleased and happy. And, it was all a good experience, but it was an unorganized experience because we did not treat it like a business.
Right. So if you were going to do it again, probably have some sort of operating agreement, clearly defined roles, and that could potentially allow people to be those money investors without muddying the waters about decision making.
Absolutely, 100%. Everybody have very clear roles.
Awesome. That's great feedback on that. And so, as you learned a lot, what else, in terms of the commercial building, I mean, it's just different, right? It's different than residential real estate. If somebody's looking at diving into commercial real estate and they haven't done it yet, what are if we were just going to have a few things that you think the most important thing for them to know at the beginning, what would that be?
Well, first of all, the reason, and I also own some residential homes, just single family homes. And I also have a salon suites business that's real estate, basically, because you're renting, the rooms. But what I love about commercial, that I really appreciate about commercial, is because the tenants are not living there. It's not their home and it is their business, which is a huge part of what they need to do, but they are very autonomous. I love that about commercial real estate. They take care of their own space. They take care of their their own business. I'm just giving them the space, so I have appreciated that part about commercial real estate, which is why I want to continue on in the commercial route instead of growing the real estate single family homes. I really like the commercial part. I think that also you get tenants are very invested in their business. They need to stay. If they're going to spend the money to build out a business, they're going to stay. And so if we do really well as landlords and we make sure that they have everything that they need, they're going to stay for years to come. And I love that because I just don't find that you don't have as much turnover in commercial spaces.
Right. Versus residential, you're happy if people stay 2 years often, right? Thinking of that build out, I know there's different ways that, leasing can be structured in commercial. Is there a certain strategy that you find works well for your building, or again, some wisdom you'd pass along to someone getting started here?
What we've done for ours, I don't know if this is how we're going to continue, but currently what we've done is we've opted to have a lower rent, but they do everything, so we have not helped with the build out. We allow them to do their own build out and they pay for their own build out. As a matter of fact, we had one space and it was the space that we actually moved into. It was in disrepair because we had an old laundromat that had been there since the beginning. They were there since 1970, and then they moved out and they just left it. It was in a really bad condition and it was a big space. And so we went in there and we're like, nobody's going to want to rent this thing out without us doing a lot of work to it. Well, we did have somebody that they were like, I want the space. They said, but I want you to do every single thing, not only just like the basics, but everything, like everything for us to get started in our business. And that's when we moved, actually. I said, you know what, if we're going to spend that much money to build it out, let's move our business over there because it was time for us to expand. But we did that on our own for our own business. We put that money into it so that we've opted. I know there's all different alternatives for lower rent. They do the build out, or you just have to be reimbursed, or you have to make sure that you're reimbursed for the build out. And so however you want to structure it, that's been our option so far, but I'm not sure that we're going to continue that in the future as we move forward.
And I love that. What works so far may not be what will continue to be the win in the future. And that open mindedness to it is amazing. Now, you mentioned your salon suites business. Now, that's in the building you own, right?
Yes. Yep. So when we moved out of our space, our chiropractic and medical space moved to a larger suite. And so I had that space, which I put up for lease, and the leasing agent was like, Amber, you have the hottest property right now in this area because it was small. It wasn't real big and people wanted a smaller space. And there was just something in me. I kept saying, I don't know if I want to put somebody in there for 5 years. I feel like there's something I might want to do with that space. And what if the medical chiropractic clinic needs more space? So I kind of let it sit there for a little bit. And then one day, a friend of mine, she owns a salon, and she said, I have a building and I'm going to put some salon suites in there. And I was like, that's what I want to do. I was in the beauty industry in our young marriage. I have 2 daughters in the beauty industry, and I've always enjoyed the beauty industry. I said, we're going to do that. So we ended up building out that suite for salon suites. So it's just another form of real estate. So you're just renting out by the room or by the chair, so we have, it's small, it's not real big. We have 11 chairs that are available for rent. And so it's not a huge thing, but it's something to get us started on if it possibly maybe in the future that we want to have a bigger salon suites. And so we're really learning a lot on that side of it. And it's really cute too. So
I love it. That's an opportunity that you didn't even imagine when you got started with the commercial real estate building that came up. That's another income stream, another leg of diversification for you as, for your personal wealth building.
Yeah, no, it's great. So we're trying to think of some, semi-passive. Salon suites is not fully passive for sure, but it can be when you get the right people in there. But it's semi though, because once you get people, they're in there and they're working, it's their own business, then you don't have a lot to do with it unless you're switching tenants. That's it.
So is that something where, considering you said there were 11 chairs in there, right? Is that something where you're able to self-manage it along with, because I know you've got a lot that you do. Is that something that's pretty low in its time requirement right now?
Yes, and I want it to be even lower in the time requirement. So somebody to help a little bit more. Yeah, with like managing even the emails that come through if somebody wants to come look at a suite or they need a tour, so having somebody. My daughter does partner with me on that, so she does a lot of the heavy lifting on that side of it. So that's fun.
And that's a great opportunity then for you to have a family business, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Very
She's
neat.
learned a lot. Sometimes she says, I'm too young to do all this. I said, you'll be all right.
How old is she? Oh, okay. Okay. Very nice. Now, a lot of people in real estate do enjoy the opportunity that comes to work with your family, right? To either work with your spouse or to bring your kids into the business. For people who are looking at that, do you have any wisdom? Anything that's worked well for you and for your daughter there as you guys work together?
Yes, my daughter and my husband, we did not do this from the beginning, and I wish we would have. We needed clearly defined roles, and we needed to stay in our own lane. That was the biggest thing. It was very commingled. I would do something, my husband would do something, my same with my daughter, and so I've done it. I've done a better job with my daughter of you this is your responsibility. This is what I'm going to do. This is what you need to do. And my husband also. So I wish we would have done that sooner, because it does cause some stress when you're not in your own lane, or when you take over and you don't know who's ultimately responsible. So you're doing something, but then they're doing something and something's not getting done, So I think really staying in your own lane and being very open with that on who has which strength. So it's like, hey, I'm better at this and you're better at this. So you take care of this and I'll take care of this. And I think as for me, even in my marriage, I've always thought of us as just being meshed together as one. We're just one. And I think that's a good thing. But also now that I'm older, I'm like, I want you to take care of this fully, and then let me take care of this over here fully. And you don't have to worry about this, and I don't have to worry about that, and so that way we're both able to really utilize our strengths. And I don't have to think, hey, did you do that? And he doesn't have to say, did you do that? It's like, you're fully responsible for this, and I don't want to think about it. And I'll be fully responsible for this over here, and you don't have to think about it. And that's given us some freedom to where he's like, oh, I mean, I took over years ago. I just took over finance, and I'm like, I'll do it, and you don't have to worry about it. I mean, of course, he has access to everything. He can ask any kind of question, but he doesn't worry about it. And then before, we would both do it. And I was like, oh, did you do that? Did you do that? So I think there's some really good lanes that should have been followed and should have been clear and agreed upon in a very positive way, would have helped us.
Right. Yes, I agree completely. I feel like I've also learned that lesson, and there's so much power when at the end of the day, like one person is fully accountable for this area, right? If it
Yes.
doesn't get done, it's their booty on the line, right?
That's right.
So
And they
even
can
within
even
the same,
delegate it.
yeah,
It's like you can delegate it. It doesn't matter. It's okay to delegate it, but ultimately you are responsible for that thing, and I'm responsible for this thing.
exactly. Very good point. They don't have to be the one doing the work. They can
That's right.
delegate it out. It's just they're the one responsible for it. Love that.
Hmm.
Awesome. So it sounds like, going forward, if you're thinking about how you're going to evaluate and choose your next investment opportunity, that's going to go hand in hand with your business growth. Now, how do you envision that moving forward, with maybe opening new branches and then the real estate? How are you going to balance those pieces?
That's a good question, because that is our next thing. That is what we're working on right now. Our goal is we're going to open 3 more clinics. So we want to have 4 total clinics. But it's not just 4 clinics, it's 4 clinics with the real estate. I would like to have the real estate, and not only to have the commercial real estate, but I want to have more tenants, so I think what I really enjoyed about this space that we're in is that, and we have a tenant that's a cupcake bakery. We took over 2 suites, and then the salon suites over two suites. So we have 5 suites, but we basically took over 4 of them, and then we have 1 tenant. So as we move forward, my goal is to find commercial real estate where we can open another clinic where it also has other tenants in there available. And the big reason why I want to do that is because I do eventually want to sell the medical chiropractic clinics. I want to sell those, and then but I want to keep the real estate. And so it's so important to me not to just rent a space. It does make a bigger challenge when you're looking for something like that, because then it limits me to where, if I wanted to just buy a clinic that was an existing clinic that was renting a space, that may be off the table for me. Because if the commercial real estate is not for sale, then I'm going to have to look elsewhere. So I kind of have a very specific goal that I want for these next 3 clinics.
And yet it's worth it because it's going to work out so well when you're able to execute on that.
Yes, that is the goal. Yes.
Are you planning a real estate event, mastermind, or podcast and want a speaker who delivers real, actionable strategies? I teach investors how to run their portfolios like a business without the chaos. Book me for your next event at adriennegreen.com/speaking
And that link is in the show notes as well.
And something I see in your plan that I think a lot of people don't think about at first, like everybody wants to get to that passive point where your money works for you, right? Like cash flow quadrant, we want to be in that I investor bottom quadrant. And yet you have to go through the other quadrants to get there, right? You've got to go from, employee to self-employed to business owner to get to that I. And that's what I love about your story is like you're doing the work to build up the systems to get to that I. It's not going to be immediate or like, a short little hop there. What do you think, can you speak to that or to, what you envision this process looking like?
As we grow older, I'll say, I've learned so much through the years. I've gone through, I'm an avid reader. I love to read. I read 2 books last week and I listened to a audiobook. Like I love it. I love learning new things. And so I feel like now that, and you get caught up in the day to day, so something that specifically happened to me in my story was last year, I actually left the business. And it was a big thing because we've been in business for 28 years, so I said, I want to go do something on my own. I want to go do just real estate only. And so I left the business and said, I got everything situated. I hired an office manager. I got everything, I left it all well, in a good spot. And I said, I'm going to go do this commercial real estate. And so I was gone for 3 months. And then after 3 months, I was getting a lot of little phone calls like, can you come back? We need you. And so it was good though. It was a great experience. It was a little stressful, but it was a good thing because what I learned in that situation was I don't have to be there every single day. That was my big thing. So as I'm moving forward, and it really opened up something to me, which is I don't have to be there every day. I need to do the work, but I need to do a different kind of work than what I was used to doing, than being there on the day to day, managing, looking at everything, so it helped me. So as envisioning going through there and know exactly what you're talking about with the quadrants with Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So going through those quadrants, I've done all of those things, I've done so many of those things. So I'm going to take everything that I've learned and now I can condense it down into a shorter time frame. And what we're going for is a bigger goal in a shorter time frame that's going to lead me to less pathways to get there, so I'm going to have to focus. I've always had so many different things going on, so many different duties, but now looking forward and really focusing on this is what I'm looking for, and we will find it, and to really clarify, this is exactly what we're looking for, and it will come, so I see taking all of the knowledge that we've learned, all of the wisdom from other people that I've learned. There's been so many awesome people that have gone before me that have so much knowledge and wisdom on how to do this. And so I'm going to learn from that and be able to utilize that to put this into practice to say, this is what we're going to do. And then we'll put this work in, but work in the right way and put the right people in the right place to where it's not scrambling and crazy. I don't want to run around, crazy in this. I want it to be something that is fun, something that I enjoy doing, something that's building a legacy, and then be able to move into something different. I think it's important for us to always be doing different things throughout our lifetime. I think that that's a fun thing to keep us young and keep us fresh and new. So I'm excited about that part of it.
I love that. And that feeds perfectly into what I wanted to ask next, which, how do you stay motivated and focused? Because as you know, with both real estate investing and entrepreneurship, there's going to be tough times. There's going to be challenges. So how do you stay motivated and focused when those things happen?
Well, I think that's such a great question because what I'm learning, I'll tell you a story of something that I just experienced this year. My friend and I've been talking about it for like 5 years, and we finally did it. We went on a pilgrimage. We walked from Portugal to Spain. We did on the El Camino. Yeah, it was amazing.
That's amazing. I love it.
It was so much fun. It was just an amazing experience. But what I learned, among many things, and it was such a simple thing, but what was great about that was we only had one goal for the day, which was to get to your next spot. That was it. And while we were there, we took pictures, we stopped, we had lunch, we enjoyed our day, we got to see beautiful scenery, so we just enjoyed the day, but we only had one goal. And the one goal was just to get to your next spot because you had to have somewhere to sleep for the night, And so that thinking of one goal, what helps me stay motivated is to have singular or just a few goals to focus on, because in my past, I've always had, we have shiny object syndrome. We just, oh, there's so many opportunities and there's so many cool things we can do. And I've done so many different things, but just to have a singular or maybe one or two really big goals, and that's all I have to really focus on, helps me get rid of the noise, stop thinking about all the busyness and everything. It's like, okay, these are the things that are the most important thing to get me to this, really big goal that I have. And I'm just going to focus on that. And the rest of it, obviously you have to delegate, and, there are things that have to be delegated that just have to be done, but I do not have to be the one to do them. So that helps keep me motivated, knowing that I have those people out there that can help me get to where I need to go, where I used to think I needed to be the one to always do everything. And that's really changed a lot in my life. And I'm so grateful. I wish I would have learned it like 25 years ago.
Well, let's speak to your 25-year-ago self then. If someone like that is listening and they feel like, they need to do it all, talk to me about what your delegation looks like. So, what kind of system, what does that look like so someone else can just duplicate that in their own lives?
Well, one thing that we did, it was a big project. A friend of mine, she actually is a friend of mine for a longtime friend. She worked for Chase Bank, and she was their operations manager at one of their branches. And that's what she loves. She loves operations. I don't love operations. And so she came in, I talked to her, this was probably 3 years ago. I said, man, I need some help. Will you just guide me in the right direction? I need to document all of our procedures. I just need to get all this done. So she not only just pointed me in the right, she came up and did it for me. Like, she's been working with me for 3 years. We documented basically everything. But so if you already have that skill, if you don't, find somebody who has the skill. Now there's software. We actually used a software called Sweet Process. It was a very intuitive way to write down every procedure. And so that has helped us tremendously when somebody has to come in and train. We have an employee. Now I don't have to be the one to sit. So documenting those procedures at the beginning. I mean, most people have heard of the E-Myth, the E-Myth thing, but the E-Myth, you have to start from the bottom. You have to actually be the one to do it. And maybe that's what you need to do if it's 25 years ago, you do it, document it really well, keep it evergreen. You got to keep things evergreen because it's going to change all the time. You're never going to have your procedures finalized. So I think having that in my mind is helpful to know this is not something that is a once and done thing. And then also knowing that there's people out there who like it. There's people out there who like to do the things that you don't like to do, and go find them instead of just suffering through or waiting or thinking, oh, I got to go do this thing. Go find them. They are out there and they love it. And it's shocking to me when people like to do things that I hate to do.
Isn't it amazing though? Or when they do it better than you can do it, it's like, oh, this is amazing.
And you want that. It's like, I don't need to be the best one doing this thing. Let somebody else do it. And I'm like, yay, that's wonderful. And I think the other thing that I learned, I can't remember what book I was reading, but they said, you need to rely on your systems. And you know how when we talk about business, you never want to hear systems over people, because you're saying, oh gosh, that sounds so wrong. But in the context of have your systems, you can't just rely on Sally, because if Sally leaves, your business is going to be gone, so you have to rely on your systems. Of course, you honor and you rely on your people, but you can't rely on a particular person, including yourself, to be able to do those things. So you have to have things documented. You have to have a plan. You have to have things written and followed, because if you're gone or if somebody else is gone. And as a matter of fact, that happened. I had a company that I worked with on a foundation company for years. Probably I've been working with them for probably a good 15 years. Love them. And Bonnie was their secretary who worked for them for 25 years. And Bonnie died. Unfortunately, Bonnie got sick and she died. And the last couple of times I worked with them, I'm like, what? I'm not getting any return calls. Where's everybody at? Like, what's happening? I've worked with you guys for a long time. And basically they relied on one person to keep them organized. And she did a great job. But once she wasn't there, you don't know, and so you can't rely on a person. You have to rely on your systems.
Right. That's a very good point. Well, and that brings us to our closing questions. I think, Amber, this will be a natural segue here. The first one is, what is your go-to tool for managing operations?
I just spoke about, which was the Sweet Process. I love their software. Any kind of software that you can write everything down. It's step by step. We have hundreds of procedures in there, and that is what everybody follows. So the first question always is, if they don't know how to do something, it's like, oh, did you look in Sweet Process? And if they say, oh yeah, I looked, it's not there, I'll say, okay, good. So this is how you do it. And then also let's get it in there. So that has been a game changer for us to actually have
I
everything
love that.
documented.
So, so important. And then next, what is one piece of advice you would give to your younger self when you were starting out?
One piece of advice I would give to my younger self would be find the people that you need on your team that you can rely on. Because when you have a team where you're all reaching for, well, first of all, you have to have some really good goals that you're getting everybody behind, and everybody needs to be aligned. And when you have a good team that's aligned with your goals, it makes everything easier. You don't feel like it's a struggle every day because everybody's going for the same thing. And so I wish we would have defined those goals a lot sooner and then had the people behind that were also aligned. And if they're not aligned, it's okay. It's just not a good fit. You need to have those people in there that are aligned. And if they're not, then they need to move on and go somewhere else. And you need to get the people in there that are aligned with you.
Right. And people can have so much ego and judgment associated with that. And it's just a
No,
factful.
yeah.
And then the final question, which I love because you said you were a big reader. So I'm excited for your answer here. What is a book that has been transformational in your investing journey?
Well, I can give a couple, but of course, Rich Dad Poor Dad was the first one. I read that so many years ago, and we played a cash flow story, at home. We love that. The kids play it. We love that game. I have another new book that's one of my favorite new books. It's not available yet, though, so people will have to wait, but I got an early copy of it. But it's called The Science of Scaling, and that one has been transformative, and I think that that's going to help me on these next big goals that I'm going for in the next 3 years.
If you guys are wondering about The Science of Scaling, you can reserve a copy now on Amazon so that you can get it when it is released. So go check that out. The latest by Dr. Benjamin Hardy, right?
Yep, that's it.
Love it. Great, great advice. And then Amber, if somebody would like to follow up, if they're looking to get into commercial real estate or love to hear more about your story or, share their own, what's the best way for someone to reach you?
Email is the best way. So my email is my name, Amber Lehmann. So AmberLehmann 92 at hotmail.com. Amber Lehmann 92 at hotmail.com. It's been my first email and my only email since the beginning.
I love it. And we'll have that in the show notes as well. So anybody who wants to speak to Amber can connect there. Well, that is a wrap on today's episode of the Freedom Blueprint. If you got value from this, please make sure to like and subscribe wherever you are listening. And then I'd like you to think about who you know who would benefit from hearing Amber's story. Who do you know who could, get this idea, this vision of scaling up with this commercial real estate? Take a minute now and go ahead and send this episode over to them. Shoot it in a text, put it in an email so they can hear it as well. And then be sure to join us again next week for another episode of the Freedom Blueprint.